The brand new Space Wolves are officially here, guys. They have been released. The Wolves have been unleashed upon the world. This is one of my very, very favourite factions in Warhammer 40k, for those who don't know. Lone Grim now is actually one of the first models I ever collected. So I'm really excited to play with this faction. I'm already really enjoying them. They're a lot of fun. There's lots of different decks that you can build. I really think this is a good release. It's very powerful, yeah. How powerful? Let's jump into the card tier list and find out. Okay, for those who have not been here before, this is dead simple. The way we do this, I give each card a score out of 5, from 1 to 5 stars. 1 is it's pretty much unplayable. 2 is it's a bad card. 3 is it's kind of okay. It's like situationally good. And the 4 stars, these are the kind of cards that really make up the mainstay of your powerful decks. These are really good, solid cards. And your 5 stars are those kind of S tier, must-have, meta-defining cards. Okay, so with that said, let's dive into the new cards and see how they look. If you disagree with anything that I come up with today, remember it's a subjective opinion. It's very early on the release. I'm sure in like 3-4 weeks my opinion is going to change as I get to play with more of these cards. So take it with a pinch of salt, and also let me know down below in the comments where you would score the cards differently. All right, that said, let's go. So first of all, I want to start with my 1-star cards, the unplayable cards. This doesn't technically mean they can never be played. It just means that when I'm looking at like the meta and I'm thinking about what really powerful decks are going to look like, that I just don't see these ever making any kind of major archetype. The first one I'm very, very sad about, because in terms of the lore and in terms of the models, it's one of my favorite units, which is the Longfangs. This is a basic card, and looking at the rarity is important. It is a starter card. It is a 2 melee with 5 range and 5 health for 4. So the health is good for 4, but the other stats are disappointing because you basically need to be able to attack with it. It says when the unit attacks, an enemy with Hunt Mark deal 3 damage to adjacent enemies. So basically, you'd need to like combine this with something like Saga or something like that to give this flank, or the 1-costed unit that gives it flank. Then it is possible that you could kind of use it, but you're really kind of clutching at straws, and overall this is just going to sit in your hand doing nothing, or if you put it on the board it will do nothing and get traded off. So I think overall it's a very, very bad card, hence putting it in the 1-star. Next up, I have got Saga of the Ball. This is give +2/+2 health to a friendly troop, and if you control 3 or more troops, draw a card. I just feel like the problem with this card is that getting the guarantee of 3, the requirement is just a little bit, I don't know. I feel like it's a kind of win more type of card, and most of the time it's going to sit in your hand and you're going to just be struggling to get the requirement off. Remember, it's very hard to keep a board presence. That said, you know, it is fairly cheap, so you could on 7, for example, do something like play a drop pod and then play this. So maybe I'm being a little bit harsh, but my early impression is this will end up being pretty unplayable and not make any major decks. Next up, we have got the Blackmane Aggressor. This is in the Battle Pass, so it's one that needs unlocking, and as you can see, it's a 6-drop with terrible stats, right? Because for 6, like, only having 6 health with no armor and 5/5 is like, it's not great. So then we look at the ability. It says pack, so obviously for other units, if other units are around, this will go up, so that's pretty good. It says rally, give +1 health to all friendly units with pack. Again, it's kind of like, if it costs 6 to play this, that means you already have to have had a board. You're not going to play this and loads of extra things. And then it's a case of, well, if you've already got a board, then you're already kind of winning massively. So it feels like a card that either does nothing or it's just a win more card. Either way, it's not actually helping you, really. It's not really changing the situation of the game. So I feel like this is a really bad card, to be honest. Again, let me know in the comments if you got any thoughts or any ideas on how to use these, because this is just my initial and early impressions. And then last but not least, in the 1-drops, I have got the Horde Slayer. Give Hunt Mark to all enemy troops. Now, this thing is weird because, like, it basically does nothing, right? Like, you have to combo this with other things, whether that's other units on the board or other stratagems. For example, like the legendary that does AoE and does additional AoE if they've got hunt marks. Obviously, that's very good, but that costs 8 energy combined to do. So, and also that's a legendary card. So how often are you going to get these two things combining? And most of the time, this is just going to sit in your hand and be terrible. So personally, I feel it's unplayable, but I'm looking forward to still trying it into some like control builds and things. But I just don't think it is a very good card. card at all. In fact, I think it's borderline unplayable. So let's now move on to the bad cards, the 2 stars. These cards can definitely find a role in very niche and specific decks, don't get me wrong. And they can be fun to try, but overall, I kind of don't think they're going to be very effective at being impactful in the game. The first one I've got is the Legendary Tenacity. This was actually a card I found quite hard to judge, to be honest, because this type of card comes with like what I'd call tempo, right? Because if you have a unit on the board, you play this, and now you wouldn't pay 5 energy for a 4/4 with 4 health, right? For a follower, but the difference here is you're giving it something that is already on the board, therefore can attack this turn. So the tempo payoff does make it better. The only reason why I think this is a bad card is that there are other cards in the faction that do what this is trying to do, but do it much, much better and much more cost effectively. So I could definitely see you running like maybe a single copy in a sort of big stuff buff kind of build, but overall I think it's quite a bad card. Next up we have got the Unbridled Fury, which is give +2/-2 to your infantry to your next turn. Again, I feel like that this is obviously a win con, particularly for a beginner army or if you're going for all infantry, but it is only infantry. Some of the cheap units are beasts and things like that, so they wouldn't actually benefit from this. So, you know, you've got to kind of get a wide board down, you kind of got to stick, and then you've got to play this. Again, it feels a bit more like win more to me, and I just overall think that in practice, it's going to turn out to be a bad card. Proper Hunt as well. Now, the interesting thing with Proper Hunt is it comes with Bloodthirst, and that immediately kind of gives you owl eyes, right? Because you're like, oh, what horrible combos are coming here? And they are possible, mainly with Niall Stormcaller. Niall Stormcaller can give itself 4 melee attack, and so obviously swinging with Bloodthirst, that means it will do 8 damage. However, there are things like the Pack ability, which can buff your Warlord. So you could end up with your Warlord, you know, maybe having like 6 attack, for example, and therefore doing 12 damage. So there are definitely kind of gym boss tactics that you could do, and you could build around Proper Hunt, which is why I'm not saying it's unplayable, but I do think that overall it's a pretty bad card. It will sit in your hand. You draw this early, it'll sit in your hand all game doing nothing, and even when it does pay off, it's not as kind of explosive as what some of the other win cons in this faction are. So I think overall I'm saying that's a 2-star. Next up we have got the Anvil of Endurance. Interesting card, this one. I think costing 2 for 1 armor is really bad, although there are some kind of gym bossy big stuff things that you might want to do, like giving this armor to a Dreadnought or something big that's just making it really hard to remove, but it's expensive for 2. Now, the heal 40 Warlord is interesting, though, and I'm definitely going to play around with this in a few late game builds, but overall, I think it is actually a pretty bad card for 2 energy. I don't think it's going to be doing much significantly, and especially when you think about, like, Hunt Mark, obviously, is healing your Warlord anyway every time you kill something, so, you know, is that 4 heal going to be that significant? Now, the Pack of 1 gives +1 melee and +1 health to a friendly troop. If you control no other troops, give it flank. This is very interesting. Every faction has a card that's very similar to this, and they've traditionally cost 2, so it's really interesting they're costing it at 1. I actually think this might be one of the ones that, given enough time to build and test, I could see myself reevaluating this in a few weeks' time and potentially bumping up. But even if I did, I definitely wouldn't go above 3 stars for me. I think it would be kind of like, okay, sort of situationally good. But for now, I'm going to go with my experience of these types of cards. They don't usually get played in metas. They're the type of card that looks good at first, but then when you actually build your deck and you actually play, you realise that it's not as good as you think. So I'm just going to give that a 2-star 5 and call it a bad card. Now, the Death Shun is another interesting one. It's only 1, and I always like 1 stratagem spells. It says give Hunt and then to an enemy troop and then draw a card. So it's a kind of draw. It replaces itself, and it's just a really cheap way of getting a Hunt mark down. You know, when you compare that to what's his name, Ragnar's Warlord Stratagem, that costs 2 to get a Hunt mark down, right? So yeah, if you're playing one of the other Warlords and you want to have a guaranteed way of getting Hunt mark down, maybe to combine with the 3 cost hard removal, for example, then it could be okay. But I think, I don't know whether it's worth taking up a slot in your deck. I could be wrong about this. This could be 3 stars, but I think for now I'm happy putting that in the 2 stars. And sadly, I'm also going to put this here as well, the Land Raider. I know this will disappoint some of you. It's always fun. We always get excited about the big cards, and obviously, who doesn't love Land Raiders, right? So, I just don't think this is a very good 10 drop, to be honest. I feel like the Vanguard's very good. That's always a cool thing to have on a 10 drop, right? Because at least it does something. But oh, how many times have we said it, guys? Like, if you are going to pay 10 energy for something, it has really got to impact the game. It's really got to impact the board. And this just isn't it. There's way too many hard removal things that can get rid of this, especially at this stage in the game. And the fact that your Warlord has 2 armor is kind of nice, but really, the thing is that they're going to... Are they going to attack your Warlord while this is alive anyway? Well, it protects you from spells. So it's kind of like I like the idea that it's kind of like a last-ditch survival thing. But I think in practice there's lots of situations where the armor's not going to matter because they're just going to take this out and then hit your Warlord. So overall, I sadly have to conclude that this is going to be a bad card, and I don't think it's going to see too much play. I definitely think we might see the odd one, and potentially in certain other modes that aren't classic, it could be played, but I don't think it's that great. The next up, we've got the Wolf and Dreadnought, and this is another one where I sadly think that the some of the late game units are just like a little bit under par. I just don't know that I'd spend 9 on this. Right, you play it down, and what does it do when it comes down? It says give +2 melee to all friendly units with pack. Okay, cool. So what you're doing is you're going to buff the 1 or 2 units that you've already got on the board. Are you really spending 9 energy to give a couple of units +2? Is that really worth it? Are there not cheaper ways to buff cards, for example? Yes, there are, is the answer to that. So I just think that it's kind of on-play value is poor. Obviously, it's difficult to get rid of with the armor and the 9 health, but at this stage, you've paid 9 energy for it. Your opponent probably just wins the game next turn. I don't think it's a good card. So sadly, that also scores a 2 from me. Next up, we have got the Stormwolf. Now then, this is interesting. I quite like the design on this card. This is when an enemy with hunt mark dies, deploy a Grey Hunter. One of the things that they've done really well with the descriptions here is it does specifically say deploy a Grey Hunter, which means that when you read the Grey Hunter text, that the Grey Hunter will, in fact, put a hunt mark on a random enemy troop. So every time we do that, we will kind of almost like cycle, right? We get a Grey Hunter, we mark up another unit. If we then kill that unit, then we could get another Grey Hunter. So in theory, we could get multiple Grey Hunters with this. Like, you can imagine this combining well with the Wolves and things like that. I want this card to work. I want this to be good. I feel like the reason I put it in bad is that it's a bit slow. It's just a little bit slow. You think about things like the drop pod. You want to get Grey Hunters out fast for 2 less. Way better. I feel like this might be a bit like the Eldar Wave. Not Wave. Is it the Wave Serpent? Where you deploy a Storm Guardian. And that thing's just a great idea, but it's just too slow in practice. Next up, we have got the Terminator Rune Priest, which is pretty cool. Nice artwork. Those who've played the tabletop know that you can get like Rune Priests, and then you can get them in Terminator armor. So this thing is a rare card, so you can have 2 of them. It's a 5/5 for 6. So if you compare this to the standard Terminator is obviously a 6/6, and it's got the same health and armor. So it's got 1 less on the attack stats, but it does say rally, deal 2 to 3 damage to all enemies with hunt mark. Now, you could say that like this combines with Horde Slayer. I think the problem with this type of card and this type of effect again is that it costs 6, right? So how do you play this with something else to get the hunt marks down? Now, obviously, if you've set hunt marks up on the previous turn, so one example of that would be you do the drop pod on 5. That obviously lights up the board. They maybe trade effectively, kill off your guys, but they've still got the hunt marks on, then you play the Terminator Rune Priest, and in theory it should clear the board. I just think that the elegant lining up of that sounds great in a theory book. I just don't know that that's going to happen in practice very often. And in most cases, I think what's going to happen is you're just going to have an underpowered, understated Terminator that you wish you'd had the other one just sitting in your hand, and you're probably just going to play it and it's not even going to do any damage. Or if it does, it'll do 2 to 3 damage to one unit. So overall, maybe I'm being a bit harsh on this. Let me know in the comments, but I'll definitely give it some testing, but my thoughts at the minute are that it's a bad card. And this is a weird one because it's actually got flank, and flank is generally very, very good. But I feel like we're at a stage in WARPFORGE's life cycle where a 5 energy flanker is like starting to get a little bit like mid, right? I think that's what the kids say, right? It's getting a bit mid. I don't know. Personally, I think what it's doing is coming on, it's killing, it can deal 5 damage. The weird thing as well is the strike says if the target's a troop and it survives, give it hunt mark. So it wants you to survive for strike, and it wants it to survive for hunt mark. That's not why you're using flankers. You're trying to get rid of stuff. I don't like the design of this card. I feel like it's a bad card. Of course, flankers are powerful in WARPFORGE, and it's not that this card can't help you. It definitely can do something. So maybe I'm being a bit harsh, but let me know in the comments. I'm sticking with 2 for now. Next up, we got Wolf, and again, I was unsure about this, and I do need to explore more with the pack mechanic, to be honest. Clearly, this can scale and get out of hand, but I do think that, again, it's a 3/5 for 4 that is often just going to be played and not really receive any benefit. In those rare situations where it goes off, sure, it could look great, but I don't think that's going to happen often. I think this is a bad card overall. Better things to be spending your energy on. And then we have got the Black Mane Reaver. So I feel like of the 2 costs, this is not that great. You play it down. If you ferocity, then it goes back into your deck, and basically what you've done is you've spent 2 energy to draw a card and give it -1. Now, Emergency Dispensation is a very powerful card in the Tau, and in that card you are spending 3, but you're actually discounting something by 3, which is quite significant, because it could mean that on turn 4 then you play like a 7-drop or something like that. Whereas this one is discounting something by 1. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there is a use for this. Maybe I'm being a bit harsh. Maybe I just haven't found the build for it. But to me, it kind of feels like, especially in a classic build, like you don't know which troop you're going to get. Kind of feels to me like, am I just paying 1 energy, net 1 energy for, yes, the card I draw is going to be -1, but I've spent 1, I've wasted a turn, I haven't developed my board. And then if you just drop this as a 2-drop, it has got 3 health. And if they don't remove it, you attack for 3, which is okay. But we've got 1 costed units that can deal 3 damage in this faction. So this is why overall I think it's a bad card. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. All right, so that is all my 2-star cards. Let's start to take a look at 3 stars. Now, this faction has a lot of 3 out of 5s. You'll notice when you compare this with my previous tier list that in the previous factions, there were a lot more bad cards and unplayable. I feel like you know, they've done a good job at making most cards somewhat relevant. So let's take a look. First of all, we got Hunter's Guile. Every faction has this, don't they? The 3-cost stratagem that draws 2 cards. And then they give you a flavorful benefit. And the flavorful benefit here is for each troop drawn, give Hunt Mark to a random enemy troop. So obviously, if you are going to build a very troop-heavy deck with very few stratagems, then this card is really good. And it's also very good in decks where you are particularly building around Hunt Mark, obviously, and the benefit of that. So I think this is pretty good. As if I'm comparing it to those 3-cost cards, they're usually pretty meh. I actually think this is a slightly better one, but I still don't think it's a good card. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's good. I think it's situation, the right deck. It's alright, and that's why we're getting 3 stars for it. Next up, we got Let Loose. This was one of my harder ones to evaluate. I mean, it's situational, isn't it? It's very situationally good. When it's good, this card's going to be bonkers. You know, every friendly beast, you know, you line up these walls of beasts, especially where you've made them cheaper with the legendary, it makes things cheaper. And then, you know, this thing just basically makes everything attack and everything gets +1. It's just so situational. This should be like so situationally good. And other times it's going to be a bit of a waste of 6 points, to be honest. So other times it's going to be bad. So yeah, towards the bottom end of 3 for me. Now, the Canis is kind of interesting because Canis gives you reach, right? So you've got one troop down on the board, then it's your turn. What you do is you go really wide by playing all your little stuff. A bit Terra Vardagast strategy-esque, right? You go really wide with the board. You stick this on the unit that was already there. It's got packs, so suddenly it gets +1 for every unit that you've just put down. Very similar to Terra Vardagast, and then it can attack, and it's massive and giant. So there's definitely situations where this card for cheap cost of 1 can be really good and can help you close games out, for example. I just don't know overall that I don't think it's overall a good card for a card slot and for 1 cost, but I definitely think it's situationally good. Next up, we've got the Fenrisian Blizzard. It says deal 2 damage to all units and give them blind until next turn. Now, this, as AoEs go, it's not outstanding. It hurts a lot of your builds. This is definitely not a card you want to play in most of the decks. Now, there are cards like for example, this card. The Wolfguard Terminator Pack Leader, and this is kind of what Fenrisian Blizzard is down for. It's for the high melee, low ranged units, and if you build a deck around that, what you can do is you can use this as your AoE, because you know, if you take Space Ultramarines for example, it costs 4 to do 2 damage to everything, whereas you're getting it for 3 here. Yes, it hurts yourself, but if yourself only got melee attack, then you benefit from that. A lot of the other Space Wolf units do have decent range attacks. This can hurt us, blinding us. Don't forget it blinds your Warlord as well. So it's kind of a weird one. I do think in a certain build, though, it's a pretty decent value AoE. But in a lot of the other builds, it's actually quite clunky, awkward, and a bit counterintuitive. So again, definition of situationally good. We might as well talk about the Wolfguard Terminator Pack. This is kind of like the Lich Guard as the faction, as we've come to know these types of units, right? These beefy 5-drops with the 2 armor. Notice that it's got 1 less health than the Lich Guard, but it's got the 2 range attack instead of 0. So they keep testing. They keep kind of playing with this unit type, don't they? So I don't know. Like, are they there? Do you think they've nailed it? One thing about this faction is there are some pretty good buffs. So playing a card like this, if it does stick, you can definitely build around then giving it like +4/+4, and it becomes an 8/4, and then all of a sudden this thing is a beast. So I do think this is a situationally good card in this faction. Where had we got to? Aha, Mr. Venerable Dreadnought. It's all right, right? It's an 8 cost. It's reached that stage of the game where playing a massive unit down that does nothing on the turn it arrives is, it's got to really have something. And the thing with this is that it is pretty sticky, right? With the shield, and basically if your opponent's got hard removal, you massively lose out and you massively fall behind. If they don't have hard removal, this is going to take some getting rid of, right? They're going to need, like, one flanker's not going to do it. Because of the shield as well, the Warlord might have to hit into it. So it is actually a bit of a pain, but again, it's a luxury to be able to put that pain block down without just losing the game or falling behind on tempo. So finding the right slot to play this, the right time is going to be the challenge. But if you can get it down in a game, it is going to definitely do. It's going to be all right. It's going to do some work because I think it's got a chance of sticking, which I don't say for most 8-drops. This is the standard Ecclesiarch Terminator. Why they didn't give Ecclesiarch this to reveal just to complete the meme is beyond me. I've laughed so much about this card. This is, for those who don't know what the hell I'm talking about, the Ecclesiarch is my partner in crime in WARPFORGE. We do a podcast together. And we've joked, well, he's been on his wish list for like 2 years that they changed the Chaos Terminator to exactly this. And it's just really funny that as a Thousand Suns player, therefore hating Space Wolves, this is the faction that got the Terminator that he wanted. I love this card. I think this card is beautiful in design because it's so simple, it's not broken, and it's not bad. It is a decent unit. Like, I can't put it in the 4 stars, I don't think. If I did, it'd be right at the bottom. but I personally feel like it's just a really solid. This is the power level that you want to build around, and at 6, I'm really happy with this build. So yeah, nice 3 stars for me. Let me know how you find the Wolfguard Terminator and what you would score it. This card is an interesting one. The Sons of Mordecai Limits. It's actually quite flexible. Obviously, with Ferocity, we can basically use it to instantly attack. And the rally says give a hunt mark to an enemy troop. So you have to remember, as well as whatever you kill, this is also essentially saying heal 1 and deal 1 to enemy face. Easily overlooked. And basically, what it says is attack a random enemy with a hunt mark. So it's not just a random enemy, it's a random enemy with a hunt mark, which often means that it's not random at all. However, it doesn't deal with things that are obviously like, you know, in stealth, because you can't select it with rally. You can't select it to give it a hunt mark unless somehow, some other way, it's you've given that stealth unit a hunt mark. But yeah, it's very flexible. You can Ferocity and just instant kill something with a 7 attack. But then again, you've spent 6 energy for hard removal, and we know things like not mucking about is 4. And at that point, it can be a little bit expensive. I do think in skirmish that it's pretty cool, because obviously going back into your deck when you've got such few cards and having a powerful card like this, I think this is a great skirmish card. I would score this definitely as 4 stars if it was just on skirmish, but I think overall, I think that this is it's more in the kind of 3 zone. Next up, we have got the hard removal. Yeah, not too much to say about this. The only thing I would say is it's very, very cheap removal, isn't it? Because it's 3 costs for hard removal. But it's not just hard removal. It's also heal your warlord by 1. It's deal 1 damage to the opponent. So the package for this is phenomenal, and therefore better, I think, than the Tau one. I think it's pretty good, actually. I might be being a little bit harsh on it. The only thing is that this type of card is often not, it's situationally needed, right? It's not often needed, and that's what makes it a 3. We already talked about the Wolfguard. Now let's talk about this guy, the Wolfguard Battle Leader. He says give adjacent units pack, or adjacent units have pack, while he's on the board. When he dies, they lose it. What's great about that is that includes your Warlord. So this is one way of buffing your Warlord power. If that's Njal Stormcaller, for example, Njal could have 5 attack with his, if you put the right rune on, with this guy. So he's pretty good. I quite like it because you have a board and then you play this. And again, it can feel a bit win more sometimes, because if you'd say, well, if you've got 2 units on the board, you're already so far ahead. But the fact that one of these can be your Warlord, which is obviously always on the board, I definitely think makes this a pretty decent card. It doesn't have pack itself, though. It's something to be mindful of. This card is very similar to the 4-costed Wolfen that we talked about earlier. If you look at the kind of stat similarities, it's almost identical. For a 1 extra cost, we get +1 melee, and we also get armor 1. That's it. But that could be a big deal. If you want this guy to survive a turn, to be able to then swing, and he could be ginormous, right? If you build in around a kind of pack thing, then the armor's going to make all the difference. So I do think that this card could actually situationally catch opponents out. Could be really good. It could force out things like, you know, opponent to take more drastic measures, hard removals and things, which then free up, mean that your slightly later game cards come through. So it's not too bad. I'm going to give that one 3 stars. We got the Iron Priest. If I'm honest with you guys, is this 3 stars or is this 2? 6 health for 4 is very nice. That is hard to overlook. But then again, I honestly feel like it's not a great card. You are drawing a card though, right? So you are guaranteeing a draw of a vehicle, and you can build around that. I think it's those 2 things, which is why I ended up still giving this a 3, because otherwise everything else about it is really bad. I don't think we're going to get much value from the regeneration. They can just kill this card first, and then the vehicle doesn't. It's not like you give regeneration to a unit. It's that they have regeneration whilst the Iron Priest is on the board. So I actually don't like the design, and it's a shame because I really love the Iron Priest in the lore and in the tabletop. I actually think it's a pretty bad card, except for the fact that it does have 6 health for 4, and it does draw you a card. It's just saying draw a card, you know, and specific type as well. So I think we're going to keep it as 3 for now, but let me know what your thoughts are. The Wolf Priest is the main healer of the faction. Nice stats for 3 in the early game particularly. It doesn't scale too well into the late game, but obviously in the late game you've got more chances to, you know, get other hunt marks down and bring units that can kill things with hunt marks. So you'll get more heal out of it. Yeah, just a nice cheap way of healing. I don't think it's like amazing. And I think there are other better 3-drops in the faction, but I do think that in the right situation, it's going to have a role to play in certain decks. And so the 3 stars. Next up, we have got Free Askar. Now then, this card is a 3/2 for 3. And it's basically got 5 health. Now, obviously, you play this card down, okay? And then in your opponent's turn, you don't have invulnerable. So they're going to be trading against a 2 attack unit. Now, you have got 5 health. So if you do play this on 3, it's pretty powerful. But if you play it later in the game, it's pretty easy for your opponent to remove, right? So I would say that is why I kept it in the 3 stars and not 4 stars, for example. But I think that if you can play it down on 3, obviously it's a great drop on 3. But later in the game, it significantly loses. I think it significantly loses its impact because it's easy to get rid of. Let me know what you think. Now we've got the standard Grey Hunter. Now this is a hard one to evaluate because there are lots of cards that give you this card. I'm thinking about this kind of mainly as just the 2-drop that you would put in the deck, and I don't think it's going to make many decks because there's just better ways to get the Grey Hunter. So why would you use a slot to just get a generic Grey Hunter when there's ways to get it for free or get it in different ways? So that's the main issue I've got with it. I do think the design's quite nice. I love the fact that it says when deployed, give the hunt mark to a random enemy troop. And then when you look at the other cards, they'll often say deploy a Grey Hunter, so it does trigger the deploy. This thing coming out of drop pods, insane. You're getting 3 of them at once. The 3 health, 2/2 stats are nice for 2. Yeah, it's an alright card. It's an alright card. The biggest downside is that you'll often have turns where there is nothing to hunt mark, right? And obviously, when there's nothing to hunt mark, you're just playing the 2/2 with 3 health down as a body. So it's a bit situational. Like I say, not a bad card, decent. Now, a card I've not been able to use yet because it's locked, it is the Bloodclaw Pack Leader. This card is interesting because it's I believe the only Artifice card in the faction. Now, it does come with Pack, so it's going to grow with a wider board. And it says give hunt mark to a random enemy troop. Artifice, give hunt mark to a random enemy troop. So every time we cast a spell or a stratagem, it's gonna give that hunt mark to a random troop. I think this is a really good way of dishing out hunt mark quick. I believe you can, if your opponent's only got 1 troop and you trigger Artifice 3 times, I believe that it will put Artifice on that same troop 3 times. Confirm that for me in the comments, but I'm pretty confident that's how that works. Yeah, I actually think this card's pretty decent. I think when we've looked at some of the 2-drops, it's pretty decent, but it's still situational because obviously you're not going to run it in every type of Space Wolf build, right? So I am going to... So yeah, I'm going to say that it's still a 3, but towards the top end of 3 for me. And then we have Ragnar. So Ragnar is pretty interesting, right? He is the beginner warlord for the faction. And so therefore you always want that to be a good card. And I think that his talent basically costs 2. And it says deal 1 damage, which you can do to the warlord, which is something to bear in mind. And because it does 1 damage, it means that combined with Ragnar swinging as well, you can deal with 3 health units, and that's important. Its extra ability, though, just says give hunt mark 1 to a troop, and it can only be a troop, obviously. So it's situational because there's so many times, like turn 1, for example, where you want to spend, you've got the 2 energy to spend, and your opponent hasn't played anything yet, so the hunt mark does nothing. So I feel like it's great that this is a warlord, because it's great that we have automatic access to be able to mark something up, with it being such an important keyword. But I do feel it's going to be pretty inconsistent, a little bit boring compared to the others, and a little bit inconsistent in terms of getting value from that. And 2 is quite expensive. And the last one in the 3 drops is the Deathwolf Scout. This thing's got camouflage. When a friendly unit triggers ferocity, lower its cost by 1. So I think this is quite good in skirmish, right? Because you can play this down. You build a kind of ferocity build. Your ferocity goes back in the deck, but it's now costing 1 less when it comes back out. And so I think Deathwolf Scout's got a very clear role in that deck. I feel like outside of that deck, it has almost no role to play, or very little. So for me, I think it's definitely not a bad card, but I don't think it's worthy of the 4 stars either. All right, speaking of which, let's move on. So let's talk about the 4 stars. These are good, solid cards, guys. Really good. These are what cards that are going to really make up your meta decks. And so you definitely want to be crafting and collecting them, and put, you know, making up the mainstay of your Space Wolf decks for sure. First up, we've got the Fang. So let's remember that the Fang is the flexi card, right? So a lot of factions have this. You spend 2, you can either deploy a Grey Hunter, you can heal 4, or you can draw 2 cards. I've used this card a lot already. I find that I am drawing 2 cards with it like 90% of the time. But definitely having that clutch heal, or even ability to deploy a body, is good. I feel like this is quite a cheap way of getting a bit of card draw, and it's a nice turn 1 play, particularly in like a Ragnar deck where, like I said before, you can't use his Warlord power turn 1 very effectively. Playing Fang first turn for 2 draw is really, really good. So I really think this is a solid card, and the versatility of it for 2 is phenomenal, right? And that's what makes it such a good card. Next up, we've got the Fenrisian Monstrosities. This is a legendary card, but it's very powerful, right? Dealing 3 damage to all units is so important these days. We know how many factions have 2 damage AoE for 4, and it just doesn't cut it, all these 3 health things. The downside is it hurts your own units. So this is very much to be built in a, not so much in a tempo build, but in a more control orientated thing. And also it says you do an extra 2 damage to each enemy with a hunter mark. So this is pretty cool. There's a lot of stratagems and a lot of ways you can kind of get hunt mark onto something. So if you've got something that's a bit bigger, you can focus on marking that up and getting some extra damage on it. So I think this is a very good legendary. I think it's going to make it into most decks, except for maybe those that are really looking to establish sort of and stay on the board with tempo, maybe like pack-based decks and things like that. But otherwise, I feel like that's going to be a great card. Now, next up, we've got the Fenrisian Wolf Pack, which is the 9 cost epic. Deploying a Fenrisian Wolf for each enemy unit. That includes the Warlord, the enemy Warlord, right? When you're counting how many you're going to get. Very much reminds me of the Dark Angel 7-drop. And the card costs 1 less for each hunt mark on enemy troops. So my experience so far is that you might get this down to 7, for example. But it's a little bit expensive. It's a little bit more expensive than the Dark Angel one. It's very good, but it is very good, and we don't have much in the form of like combat mechanics and dealing with go wide. So I do feel like this is going to be in a lot of decks, if I'm honest. There's something that feels just a little bit, I can't really put my finger on it, a little bit more underwhelming. I think it's probably just a bit more fairly priced. But ultimately it's good. Don't forget these Fenrisian Wolves essentially kind of like have flank, right, in what they do. And yeah, if you've made hunt marks and you get to play this for much cheaper, then obviously it gets more and more broken. Now, next up, we've got the Savage Legacy. This is a really cool 1-costed strat. Deal 1 damage. If the target dies, gain a Grey Hunter. Deploy a Grey Hunter. I feel like this is amazing value for 1, right? You're dealing 1 damage, so you're helping to kill something off. You're getting a 2/2 with 3 health body that puts a mark on a unit, which is essentially going to lead to +1 heal and +1 damage to enemy face. You're getting all of that for 1 cost. I think that you can't ask for much more value in a 1-costed stratagem. It's really, really good. It would pretend. The thing that stops this being a 5 in my eyes is the fact that it says, if the target dies, deploy a Grey Hunter. So there are these situations where you just, you want to ping a shield off, or there's certain situations where dealing 1 damage is good, but it's not necessarily going to kill the thing off, and therefore it's then just a card sitting in your hand. But that's why it's not 5 stars. It's definitely 4. Now we got Beyond Shine. Beyond Shine gives 2 health to a friendly unit, and this is for your ferocity decks, right? You play it on a ferocity card. It triggers its ferocity. It stays in play. Needless to say, the value, the tempo that you're getting from that is absolutely insane when you look at how good a lot of the ferocity cards are. Really solid card. Vindicator is a basic card, and I believe it's a basic good card, right? It's cost 7. It comes with 8 health, which is what you're looking for, right? 1 more than the cost, and the 7/7, so the trade can't be cheated with the Vindicator. Someone is going to take some damage, and a simple but effective rally of deal 3 damage. I think that in itself is pretty good, but obviously if the enemy has Hunt Mark, being able to do 6 damage is pretty phenomenal, right? To get that will remove most units. And you're putting a body this big on the board. And it's at 7. It's that sweet spot. I've talked about that before, where at 8, when you're playing beefy units at 8, they've really got to do something. They often fail to do so. So I think this is a good card. I really like the design. And then we have Murderfang, which, again, in that 7 sweet spot for the big stuff. This thing is a murderous beast, all right? Like, Murderfang is going to do so well in Saga decks. Murderfang is, again, when you actually deploy it, if you deploy it from hand, it's not doing anything, but I think at 7 you can just get away with it because it's got 8 health and armor. That's phenomenal. Absolutely, it's an absolute pain to deal with. They have to have hard removal probably at this stage of the game, and then obviously having that whopping 8 attack means you should slay something easily, and that gives you 2 heal and bloodthirst. Yeah, Murderfang's an absolute beast. It's going to be in decks, and it's going to be a really, really good, like, clear kind of like win con for sure. Next up, we've got Arjak Rockfist. And basically, he is a legendary card. It destroys an enemy attack. I still honestly am a bit confused about this card. It says destroy an enemy troop with Hunt Mark attacked. The wording on that is really clunky because you can read that as, if I play Arjak down and my opponent gets attacked by a troop that I had last turn and kills his troop that has the troop he's attacking as Hunt Mark, then it would die with Arjak on the board. But I don't think it works like that. I think Arjak has to be the one attacking. It's very unclear the way that's worded. Terribly worded card. But either way, the rally says give invulnerable to a friendly unit this turn, and that can be your warlord. It can be allowing your warlord to hit into something that's really big and not take damage, or it can be a troop saving a troop. And I think just that alone, when you combine the stats that you're getting for 5, is a powerful ability. So it's not a 5. It's not a meta defining legendary, but it's certainly a really good solid troop to play on 5. Speaking of really solid troops, I've been pleasantly surprised by this card. I don't think I saw this one coming. First of all, it's got really good stats, right? 4, 4, 5 for 4. Really, really passable stats. But it says when an enemy gets Hunt Mark, give +1 to your units this turn. Now remember, your warlord is a unit. So everything gets +1. And the thing is, the rally for this thing does give a Hunt Mark. So when you play it, everything gets +1. It reminds me of Nexus a little bit. And then you just keep, if it's later game, you can just keep piling on those Hunt Marks, and this thing just keeps triggering everything. The other thing that's really cool is the fact this costs 4. Obviously, the drop pod coming next turn on 5. So if they don't remove this, and the drop pod then drops 3 things that give Hunt Mark, that's +3 to your warlord and everything that's on the board, which is this guy and the 3 Grey Hunters that come out. That's game winning right there. So yeah, this card's really solid, really, really solid. Definitely worthwhile of 4 stars. By the way, guys, if you're liking this so far, then don't forget to hit that thumbs up below and subscribe and ring the bell. This is the Wolfguard Head Taker, one of the more pleasant surprises for me. From sometimes you assess a card when you look at it, and then you just actually play with it. And when I played with this card, I was like, this card's really good. This card is really good. And why is it really good? It's just so much value packed into 3. We obviously get a decent body. Playing it on 3 feels really nice because it's got the 4 health. It's not easy to deal with, even though they're going to attack the range. They're probably going to have to hit you twice. Obviously, if they don't kill it, it gets to swing with more than that. It's got pack. So if you've got another unit down on the board, this thing is becomes a 5/3, another unit becomes a 6/4, and just gets bigger and bigger. And then the beautiful thing is that it creates the Hunting Wolf, which only costs 1. So it's giving you that value of something that can then come on for 1 and deal 3 damage. You can, for example, bring the Wolf on turn 4. You can bring them on together, making this guy a 5/3. There's lots of flexibility. It's a really, really good card. I'm really, really pleasantly surprised by this card, and it's going to make it into a lot of my decks, to be honest. Then next up, we've got this card. This card I thought would be really, really solid because it has got good stats, which is 3/3/4, and that's mainly why I've given it good, because you can't really ask for much better stats than that for 3. I do think that the rally ability is more situational because, again, this early in the game, your opponent might not have anything on the board, particularly if you're going first, for example. Just might not have anything on the board, so I don't know. I feel like it deserves to be here for the stats alone, but and in the late game, they're more likely to have something on the board, so you will get the rally off. But sometimes in the early game, it might just be a 3/3/4 for 3. But that's okay. In fact, it's more than okay. It's good. So it's still a really, really solid card. I have to say, though, I'm leaning more towards a Wolfguard Head Taker in terms of my preference. So we'll see where it is in a few weeks. Maybe this will go down a little bit, but for now, I've got it there. Next up, we have got the Wolf. Hunting Wolf, Ferocity, attack a random enemy troop. This card's really good. It costs 1 and it deals 3 damage. And it can't go to face, so that's the downside, but it can deal with stealth units. I feel like for 1 energy, dealing 3 is really, really good. I know it says random, but you can often manage that. Next up, we have got Hrolf. Now, this is the Beastie Boy. Friendly beasts have pack. Okay, great. And cost 1 less. That's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. Yeah, if you want to build a very beast-heavy deck, this guy's going to be like an absolute rock star in that deck. The rally says stratagems in your hand become hunting wolves and fenrising wolves. So that's such a cool effect. It's a unique effect. I don't think we've ever had a card like that that transforms cards. So what you can do is obviously build a deck with beasts and stratagems, and then you play this guy, and all your stratagems turn to beasts. They all cost 1 less. Blah, 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 blah. They all have pack. Yeah, it's going to be a devastating turn. Really solid card. The only reason it's not 5-star S tier is, like, imagine you're collecting Space Wolves. This is the first legendary you pull. It probably doesn't want to go in all your decks. So I can see it being a little bit more situational in that sense, but my God, it's powerful in the right deck. And right towards the top of good for me is this card. I do think that the Fenrisian Wolf is awesome design, and it's also one of maybe the best artwork in the faction. It's a beautiful card. This card's cool. It's got Tide 2, so I really love the way it scales into the late game. If you've played Skirmish with this card, you'll know what I'm talking about. Like early on, playing it, putting it back in the deck with Ferocity, then later on playing out 2 or 3 of these. We just talked about Hrolf, so obviously good synergy there. It's the fact that this thing says attack an enemy troop. You get to choose where this one goes. It's not random, so it can't deal with the, it can't deal with the, what do we call it, ambush. But that said, free attack. You can choose where it goes. You can get multiple of them, and the icing on the cake is with Hunt Mark. This thing's doing 5 damage for 2. That's phenomenal, guys. That's absolutely phenomenal. It's a really good card. It's really pressing. It's really pushing the top of 4 stars and 5 stars. It's and the bottom of 5 stars. It's very, very close. And the only card that really can match that is this one. Why? Because this thing only costs 1. Yeah, this thing only costs 1. Not sure why I've got a low res version here, but anyway, it says ferocity, deal 3 damage to an enemy. The big thing about this, it can go face. So it's if you're doing like gym bossy stuff, you're looking for reach. This is a key part of it. It goes back into your hand. It doesn't die because it's deal 3 damage. It's not saying attack, so it doesn't die. So this is a brilliant, brilliant card. It's such a good card. I'm so close to putting this at the bottom of my 5 stars. But then when you see the 5-star cards, you'll realize that is some tough competition to get in there. This is right at the top of good for me. Really solid card. So that's it, guys. That's all of our 4-star cards. Make sure that you are not missing opportunities to craft those. Look out for them in the shop. And yeah, go ahead and have fun in the decks that you build because they are fantastic cards. So we're going to move on. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. We're going to move on now to the S tier must-have meta-defining, earth-busting, yeah, the best cards in the faction. Let's go. Okay, first of all, I'm going to talk about Njal Stormcaller. Njal Stormcaller is the card that you get if you buy the Battle Pass. It's the first card that you unlock for free. And it is the Epic Warlord. And I'm going to be honest, it is a big step up from Ragnar. I wasn't sure about Njal. I know Tim had him as a release, and we had some chat in the background. I wasn't seeing it, but now I've played with it. I went on a 12-win draft. Go and check that out. It's on my live, on my YouTube. If you look under the live tab, not the videos, you'll find this. And I had some epic games, and he was just phenomenal. Just phenomenal. So good with ferocity. One of the things I missed is the fact that it stacks. The ferocity stacks. So I was thinking that the runes were always going to cost 1, right? Like, because the rune costs 2 and it gets discounted by 1 whenever you ferocity. But if you ferocity again, it gets discounted by another 1. So it's now 0 cost. And then the 3 rune choices are 0 cost. The 3 rune choices are +2 melee to a unit. That includes Njal Stormcaller itself, which is how he can dish out 4 damage per turn. The second gem option is -2 ranged to an enemy troop until the start of your next turn. So really kneecapping a ranged unit, which obviously like against Dark Angels and Sisters and other things that can be crippling. Also helps you to trade into something without taking big damage. And then the third one is essentially Uriel's Warlord ability, which is deal AoE to 3 units, 1 damage. So the flexibility of that is phenomenal. I found myself just going up 4 damage and hitting face in that draft quite often. And yeah, really, really powerful. Obviously making use of the Bloodlust card, the proper hunt that we looked at earlier. Njal is great. Really, really solid Warlord. Really, really powerful and great with ferocity, which in itself is a fantastic mechanic. Next up, we've got the birth of a saga. And my lord, this thing I'm currently 8-1 on a draft that's based around this thing, and my god, it is phenomenal. If you're playing things like Murderfang, if you're playing things like like the Wolf and Pack Leader, which we're going to talk about in a minute, and a lot of the big stuff, like the Sniper, for example, this card is just phenomenal. It pulls out 3 cards from your opponent's deck, pulls out 3 from yours, but yours get flank and armor. It's just phenomenal. Like in skirmish, this just wins games. Just wins games. Remember, your opponent is going to run out of cards so quickly. That's a win con in itself. Just pulling out 3 troops from their deck, they just often run out of cards, and those 3 cards are just going to get battered and clobbered. I think one time it backfired, which was actually in a Space Wolf mirror. I pulled out like 3 of his dreadnoughts, and it backfired horribly. But I think in most cases, it's just unbelievable. I do think you've got to build around it, which is why it's probably not the best card in the faction, and it's slightly lower on the 5-star must-haves. But you have got to build around it, and that can often mean playing more expensive units, which is often not great. But the effect is just game winning, and especially in skirmish. Okay, let's look at literally an old one, an old dreadnought, an old classic, Bjorn the Fell-Handed. Yes, bound to a dreadnought. The man inside fought with the great Leman Russ himself. Yeah, such an iconic unit, isn't it, in the Space Wolves? For all you 40k geeks out there like me, you'll be well happy to see this card, and even happier to know that it's a 5-star card. It's an absolute beast. Like, if this is what we're talking about, if you're going to play big units, this is what you're looking for. It costs 8, but it's got 9 health, 1 armor. It's got amazing offense stats, as you'd expect. But it says when a friendly unit uses ferocity, it stays in play. Now, again, the tempo of that is ridiculous. This thing itself has ferocity, so it can come down and it can actually do AoE, deal 2 to 3 damage to all enemies on the turn it comes down without actually then bouncing back in your deck. So it's an expensive unit, but it does something. It's really hard to remove, and then what it does in the next turn is just ridiculous. So this card is a real problem. Like, if your opponent doesn't get rid of this instantly, they're probably going to lose the game. Now, one card I am super amazed by and somewhat happy with is the Fenrisian drop pod. I'm happy with the design idea. I feel like this card's too powerful, to be honest, but I like the design idea of it. What you're doing is you're playing this down on 5. You're going to ferocity, which will mean that the drop pod will go away again and go back into your deck, but it leaves behind 3 Grey Hunters that all trigger their hunt mark, providing that there's an enemy troop on board to trigger them on. So it's a great way of deploying quickly those go wide units, setting up those markers. It follows the 4-drop that we talked about earlier. What was that? What do we call it? This card. The synergy with this card is amazing. The synergy with this card is amazing, right? You play this down, and then if they don't get rid of that into the drop pod, that's just a disgusting back-breaking combo. And of course, you could do that later in the game. Also synergizes really nicely with the 1-cost stratagem, so you can make this thing stick around, or Bjorn, as we just said, Bjorn the Fellhanded. Next turn you play this, right? And that will mean that the drop pod will stick around. But again, this card can be phenomenal for going back in your deck. You can pull it out with Birth of the Saga. Really good in skirmish because you can just keep doing it. It's just a brilliant, brilliant card. You know, the only thing is, if your opponent's got an actual board, you play this down on 5 and 3 guys come out, but they haven't got flanks, so you can't actually get rid of the board. So you do have to be a little bit careful on the timing and when you use it. But overall, I still think it's hard to really find anything to complain about. Another card that has been one of my favorites. I call this the no mucking about of the Space Wolf faction. Why? Because essentially it's hard removal for 4. Instead of your opponent, like with no mucking about, you generally don't use no mucking about unless your opponent's only got 1 troop on the board. What we're doing here is we really want to only have 1 troop on the board. But it has got flexibility because actually it can just deal 5 damage. But if there is only... this is the only thing on the board, you'll do 10 damage. So it's a really powerful card. It goes back in your deck so you can reuse it later. So it's like having multiple no mucking abouts. Another good one in skirmish. Yeah, really strong card. Now, this card is honestly a contender for the best card in the entire faction. It's certainly the best rare card in the entire faction. It's that wonderful 3-costed 3/3 with 4 health stat line, which is perfect. You can just play this out proactively on 3. But it has this amazing, I'm not going to repeat myself, but everything I said earlier about this, the tempo, where you can actually just pass his stats onto something that's already on the board, and therefore being able to make use of those stacks immediately and attack. Imagine playing this on so many of the cards that we've already talked about. So many of them benefit from this, right? When we talked about things like, you know, think about the Terminator that costs 6. That's the standard Terminator. That thing becomes a 9/9 with 10 health and armor and Vanguard. Are you serious? Or this card here, right? So it's just a phenomenal, versatile card. You play it onto Tyrannak and Fenrir, which we're going to talk about in a minute. It's just absolutely game breaking. You play this on Tyrannak, he's suddenly got 7 attack. That becomes 14. Yeah, totally busted. I'll talk more about it in a minute. So let's talk about Tyrannak and Fenrir. Logan's pet, right? In fact, let's do these 2 together. Okay, so we got Tyrannak and we got Logan. Okay, so Logan Grimnar is the... don't forget, 30 health. This is the skirmish health, right? He's 40 in classic mode. And he starts the game with Tyrannak and Fenrir in hand. So first of all, that is an awesome mechanic. It's brand new. It's the only faction at the time of recording this where that happens. So you're guaranteeing having this every single game, which is awesome in itself and makes Logan just an absolute megastar. Now, Logan's two-costed stratagem basically allows him to draw a card, a bit like Manius Calgar. But when he draws a card, Tyrannic and Fenrir reduce the cost by 1. So that is just absolutely bonkers in itself, because you're not playing Tyrannic for 7, you're going to be playing him for like 6 at worst, probably cheaper than that. And then this card comes down in stealth. You've got to remember, they only get stealth if there's no other troops. I have made that mistake. But then this guy's a beast, because he's in stealth, he's got 9 health. And as we just said, you can play the Grey Hunter pack onto this guy, giving him +3/+3. So now he's a 7/3. That's got Bloodthirst. So he's doing 14 damage to face next turn. Oh, and he heals 2 every time he strikes. I mean, this is just an absolute... This combination is just... Yeah. That's what I love about Logan, is that he actually has a built-in win con, as well as, let's not forget, the subtlety of, spending 2 to draw a troop every turn. And by the way, it is draw a troop. It's not draw a stratagem, so it's even more specific, and that's a deck builder's dream. These 2 cards, especially, you have to really evaluate them hand in hand. They are absolute S-tier cards, and also they're a ton of fun to play. And so the last card I want to talk about today, and it may well be it's difficult to say like which of these is the absolute best. All of these S-tier cards are very, very good. This might be the best in the entire thing. The Raid Tactics is so good because Ferocity is such a good mechanic. Now I'm certainly imagining, I'm certainly thinking about what it did for me in my draft. Like if you're playing Skirmish, it's phenomenal. Because first of all, you can get multiple ones of these in draft as well, which is, they do stack. So you'd be dealing 4 damage to the Warlord every time you do Ferocity. That's just beyond broken. But even outside of draft, this card, the only weakness of this card is only one of them in a 30-card deck, and so you might not find it early enough. But if you do find it early, I mean, you're gonna struggle to lose, because every time you trigger Ferocity, you can focus on just clearing the board, because the dealing 2 damage to the enemy Warlord is just happening as the icing on the cake. So you're constantly chipping away, you're getting ahead. And I really love the combo with Nyal Stormcaller, because the fact that Nyal obviously synergizes so well with this, because Nyal's Warlord talent gets cheaper every time you Ferocity. And if you're playing this card, obviously you're playing Ferocity almost every turn. And that means you get a free Warlord strat from Nyal, and then Nyal basically makes himself 4 attack, hits face. And so because this thing is dealing 2 damage and Nyal's hitting for 4, the gap suddenly between your Warlord and your opponent's Warlord opens up real quick. So I feel like Raid Tactics, and especially with Nyal, is just so broken. It's so game busting, and it's such a powerful legendary. So that is my complete picture of 5 through to 1 stars. Let me know what you think in the comments, guys. I do feel like the Space Wolves are definitely going to see some nerfs at some point, because they are super powerful. But they're a lot of fun to play, so I'm enjoying them now while I can. Let me know how you're getting on with your own experience of them. Let me know down in the comments any of the cards that you disagree with in terms of where you feel they should be on the tier list. And guys, I'll see you in the next one. Look out for some live streams. Ciao for now.